convene a commission on the status of women. Former First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt chaired the commission, which investigated the needs of women as homemakers and as paid workers. The commission's final report clearly documented discrimination against women in every aspect of American life and recommended equal rights under the law as the necessary remedy. The Equal Pay Act, signed into law in 1963, was the first step. It outlawed the practice of paying women less than men for doing the same work. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 was the second step. Although it was originally written to prohibit employment discrimination on the basis of race, religion, and national origin, one senator added sex to the list of protective categories in an attempt to kill the bill. But it passed and became the legal cornerstone for the emerging women's rights movement. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, created by the bill, helped expand women's employment opportunities, first by outlawing male-female distinction in want ads, and second by providing a vehicle for women to file employment discrimination complaints. Women banded together to tackle a wide range of issues. Betty Friedan's enormously popular book, The Feminine Mystique, brought the ideas of the emerging women's movement into the homes of thousands of dissatisfied housewives and helped launch the contemporary feminist movement. In 1966, Friedan and 28 others formed the National Organization for Women, known as NOW, to work for economic and political equality. In addition to demanding an end to legal discrimination, NOW also lobbied for welfare system reform, maternity leave, daycare centers, legalized abortion, and job training for women. The time was right. The formation of NOW was immediately followed by a wide range of other women's organizations. Some addressed problems common to women of all races. Others deliberately focused attention on the issues faced by a particular ethnic group. Across the nation, feminists addressed the tougher issues: domestic violence, child sexual abuse, forced sterilization, rape, sexual harassment, and reproductive freedom. In many communities, women set up women-centered agencies to provide legal counseling, health care, and abortion services. They argued for acceptance of women-identified lifestyle and for lesbian civil rights. And issues of specific concern to older women were raised by such pioneers as Tish Summer and Lori Shields, who founded the Older Women's League, and by Maggie Kuhn, founder of the Gray Panthers. The women's movement also generated a variety of newspapers, journals, and books to carry its messages. Dozens of bookstores opened specializing in materials written by, for, and about women. In 1972, Ms. Magazine, the first mass circulation feminist magazine, debuted, injecting feminist thought into the mainstream of public discussion. Its founder and editor, Gloria Steinem, became a well-known spokesperson for the movement as she clearly articulated feminist issues and concerns through her writing and many public speeches. In response to massive lobbying by women's organizations, Congress overwhelmingly passed the Equal Rights Amendment in 1972. Though it had originally been proposed by the National Woman's Party in 1923, it took almost 50 years and the modern feminist movement to get Congress to approve the ERA and to send it to the states for ratification. Led by Eleanor Smeal, NOW and many other national organizations began an all-out campaign for ratification. Although many states rushed to ratify, a small but well-financed opposition rose in a few key states. Attorney Phyllis Schlafly became a vocal leader of that opposition, using many of the same arguments that had been used against women's suffrage 100 years earlier. In 1977, public opinion polls showed overwhelming support for the ERA, which seems certain to become the 27th Amendment to the Constitution. Reproductive freedom became one of the decade's most controversial issues. Feminists argued that women should have the exclusive right to make decisions about their own bodies. In 1973, the Supreme Court ruling in Roe v. Wade guaranteed women the right of choice in the early months of pregnancy. This was a major victory for women's rights advocates. Women became involved in the political process as never before. At local and state levels, they moved from being campaign volunteers to being candidates themselves, and to winning office in record numbers. In 1972, Shirley Chisholm, the first black woman elected to Congress, made history again by actively campaigning for the Democratic Party's presidential nomination. In fact, these years were full of firsts for women in politics. Romana Banuelos became the first Latina to hold a cabinet office when President Nixon appointed her Treasurer of the United States, and Patricia Harris became the first black woman in the cabinet during the Carter administration. Patsy Mink became the first Asian American woman elected to Congress, and Ella Grasso, a Connecticut congresswoman, was elected governor of her state. The feminist movement created many new options for women of all ages. Women enrolled in college programs in medicine, business, engineering, science, and law in record numbers, and entered employment in professional occupations unimagined just a generation before. Others sought access to skilled trade jobs and were assisted by organizations like the Coalition of Labor Union Women and the Tradeswomen Organization, and by affirmative action hiring policies for government construction contracts. An expanded portrayal of women's roles eventually worked its way into the media as well. By the late 70s, women began appearing in new, stronger, active roles in advertisements, movies, and television programs. The feminist movement also inspired girls and women to see themselves more accurately as strong and physically capable. Women like Billie Jean King became role models, shattering outworn ideas about women's athletic abilities. Increasingly, women became involved in sports either for competition or for leisure time enjoyment. By 1977, many things had changed, but the goals of equality and justice for women were far from being achieved. That year, 2,000 delegates and observers representing every state, all races and economic classes, gathered for the first National Women's Conference in Houston, Texas. Through workshops and in planning sessions, they analyzed the problems of women in their states, taking care to include the perspective of all women. They drew up a list of priorities, eloquently presented their analysis, and developed a national plan of action to bring about the necessary changes. As a result, the Houston Conference clearly demonstrated that despite the diverse backgrounds of the women present, common bonds united them. It also revealed that in a few short years, the grassroots feminist movement had become a fundamental social revolution. The conference theme said it well: we're here to move history forward.